Hey, who cares if your kids don't like you?
Say what?
That's exactly right. So that's what we're going to talk about here.
Who cares?
Is we're called to be parents and not friends first
Come on.
to our children. So if you make decisions your kids don't like,
It'll be
as
okay.
I often say, who gives a flippity flip, rippity rip, what they think? Hey, listen, listener. Be encouraged as you listen to this. We're going to give you some really good tips on parenting, making decisions, and just coming to this place to where you just don't care, in the moment at least, if your kids like it or not. Okay, so you
Me?
are not, you and me and me and you, are not our children's, and you listening, you are not your kid's friend first.
Say what?
Say what? You are their parent first.
I have to parent my children?
You don't have to, but it's highly recommended for them to not to turn out to be adult brats. You ever met an adult brat?
Never.
They're on the welfare system.
Whoa.
They think everybody owes them something. Yeah?
Yeah.
And so, anyways, that's
Entitled.
They're entitled. And the thing is that, and so some of that comes from, not all of that, but some of it could come from people that have been raised, and it's like they've not really been raised.
Right. I was just going to say.
And they've not been trained. And sometimes there's various reasons why that happens, but sometimes people, they want their kids to like them. And who doesn't want their kids to like them? I mean, I want my kids to like me. I like them. And,
most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time. And of course, when they first were born, I mean, you just like instantly fall in love with them. And then that just continues to grow. And so you want to have a good relationship with your kids. And
At a certain point, it will change for that. But while they're...
where you can become their friend.
Yeah. But when
they're being raised, especially in the first, 3 years, I'll say, you were not there for your kids to like you. But even beyond that, as they get older, you are not there primarily as their friend. Your primary job is to be their parent. Now that changes. When they first come out of the womb, it's without you, they'll die. You got to feed them, you got to change them, you got to do everything for them. As they get a little bit older, they become a little bit more independent, but your role continues to change because you go from only loving them in the nurturing way to now you're loving them also in a disciplinary way.
Right.
So that element changes. And then as they get even a little bit older, then you have to begin to communicate with them guidelines and maybe some rules.
A lot more communication.
A lot more, yeah. And then when they get into the teenage years, it's basically the consequences for actions, which is part of discipline. We really try to move away from the idea of punishment. But the consequences for their actions, which sometimes you could call punishment, but that gets to be nothing to where it is all just communication. But when they're little, it is, if you don't do that, then, or if you disobey me, then, you're going to get a spanking or however you choose to discipline your children. But no matter the stage, your job is to parent them.
While they're in your home.
Not to just be their friend. And then when they're out of your home, you still parent them, but it looks very different. And you can't give unsolicited advice. It has to simply just be them inviting you into whatever conversations. But you'll still always be their parent. But just remember that you are their parent first and not their friend. And as they get older, like with our oldest, he's becoming a friend to us. Right. Which is a totally different dynamic. But I think that people don't enjoy their children when they're older because they don't learn how to parent. They don't know how to parent them when they're younger.
Right. Or they're trying to be their friend, like you said, first when they're younger. And it just doesn't work out like that because then I feel like in that place, because parents are made to be a parent, and part of nurturing and protecting is a discipline. It is.
Sometimes it's saying no.
It is because you're teaching them how to manage themselves in your home in a safe environment where the consequences of them making a bad choice isn't detrimental to them. I mean, like sometimes it can be in your home, but when they get out of your home, like they don't have your covering like they do at home.
Right.
And I think they lose respect for you later in life when they realize my parent just wanted to be my friend and not my parent. I think like there's a level of that, and then they're like, I don't really need that in my life if they're, you know, not careful. Like there is like this, what, like, I don't need that. Like I needed somebody, even if I didn't say it or know it when I was younger. I needed somebody to be able to tell me no, to teach me boundaries, and to help guide me so that I was safe and sound in my thinking and knew how to navigate those thinkings and thoughts and emotions, so that when I left home, I actually launched and was propelled versus I had to just figure it out on my own.
Yeah. Yeah,
I didn't feel, I'm not like saying this, but it could be said that you didn't feel protected. You didn't feel loved. You didn't feel nurtured because the parent wasn't the parent.
I had a family member that he's about my age, and and looking back, I realized like, oh, okay, yeah. He told me that when he went to buy car insurance, he's like, after he was out of college, he said, I had no idea how to do that because my mom never taught me how to do anything like that. I don't know why he went back to his mom, because I guess his dad didn't either, but he was like, nobody taught me how to do anything like that. And so he said, I was clueless. And looking back, I realized, particularly with his mom, I'm not saying that she was like a bad mom, but she was always more concerned about her children liking her. To always say, you know, being like, you're not your kid's friend first. Like some people be like, yeah, I'm not trying to be my kid's friend, but you might just want your kid just to like you or to not be upset with you.
Right.
Or to stomp out of the room because you told them that something they didn't want to hear. And a lot of times kids will end up, this is true. People will grow up to be manipulative because nobody stopped them from being manipulative when they were younger.
That is
and they develop a pattern,
story.
And before you know it, they're 50 years old, and they come into a church and they're a total Jezebel because they didn't get spanked when they were younger, and their parents cared about them liking them. I'm speaking the truth here.
I know.
By the way, a Jezebel isn't just seductive, but is also like controlling kind of thing. But anyways, that's how people get like that. They don't just have some demon. They're allowed to do stupid stuff, and nobody helps them when they're younger, and especially teenagers. Well, and it's even younger. We're dealing with our youngest is being a little bit manipulative in an area he doesn't know he's doing it. It's just a fleshy thing that we have to help him with. But you know, especially when you get to teenagers, like to sit and have conversations like, yeah, we're just not going to do that thing that you're pressuring us to do. We are not going to do that. And then to see, you know, the eye rolls and the shoulder drops and the size of, you know, like nobody likes to hear that from their kids, but it's not about them liking that. It's about making proper decisions. It's about, like you said, setting boundaries. And it's good and it's fine to do those things. And it's interesting because I had a conversation with one of my kids who has historically thought he was right about everything. And not long ago, he told me, he's like, you know, Dad, as I've gotten older, I realized that you're a lot more right than what I thought you were. And so that was nice to have that little payoff, but we had to go through a lot of
no's and hard navigation.
The things that he thought he was so right about that we're like, yeah, you're not right about that. And we've allowed him to make mistakes to his detriment many times, just so he could see like, yeah, that wasn't the right thing. And we don't hold it over his head, but we want to train him to be free. But, you know, in those moments, having children that are in a disagreement with you doesn't feel fun, but it's part of the process.
No, it doesn't feel fun. And I think that's the reason why we cave.
Sometimes it's even heartache.
It's terrible. Yeah. A lot of times it's terrible. And honestly, as a parent, it takes discipline and self-control to not cave and to stand your ground and to say, this is my home and this is my house and I am the parent. And most of the time I do give you, we have a conversation later, but sometimes in the moment, like I've learned to just say, this is what we're doing and we're doing it now like this, and later we can have the conversation of how you didn't like how I said it or blah, blah, blah. But what I was looking for in that moment was, yes, Mom.
Our good friends, Ron and Wendy, they've been with us for years in ministry and just friends. And I remember Ron saying that whenever they would all go through the drive-thru, because they have 12 kids, and when a vast majority of them were at home, they'd go through the drive-thru. He would just get he'd be like, we're getting 12 cheeseburgers, or we're going to get 50 tacos or something. He's like, I can't take everybody's orders. I got to make a decision and go for it. Sometimes as a parent, even if you don't have 12 kids, even if you have one kid, in the moment, you have to be the one that be the adult and say, this is a decision that we're going to make. We do that whenever we go to order pizza. Nobody wants pizza from the same place. And sometimes it'll be like, sometimes we'll get it from a couple places. Like if it's, a night where you're not going to cook and it's like crab pizza because we've been really busy, then we'll just, we'll get pizza. But sometimes it'll just be like, look, we don't have time. We're going to this place.
I've ordered this and you like it or don't.
Yeah, either eat it or don't. Yeah. And so, it's just, that's a little thing, but you have to be like that when it comes to things. And I think we could retitle this. I think this is a title for this episode is, who cares if your kids like you?
Yeah.
Like, who gives a rippity-rip, flippity-flip if your kids like you and the decisions you're making? Now, you're not trying to make your kids your enemies.
Right.
But they crave boundaries. They crave security. Boundaries are secure.
Yes.
Even if it's limiting, it brings security, and your children need security. They don't need control.
Right.
But they need security.
And there are boundaries set in this earth. The ocean has a boundary. And the daytime has a boundary. The nighttime has there's boundaries all around. We put fences up in our yards. We only drive on highways. Well, generally speaking, there are boundaries that are all over the world. There are boundaries in the workplace. There are boundaries in your subdivisions. All throughout all of our life, as we continue to grow up and have people who are over us and, different things, there's always boundaries.
Yep.
So they need to learn, there's boundaries no matter, and even, if you don't teach them good boundaries inside of your home, then oftentimes this is where you find people who don't actually operate in self-control very well, and you have compulsive spenders, and you have people who can't control their flesh, so they deal with other types of addictions and different things like that because they don't know how to have or manage their freedom. They were never given an opportunity. I think that's actually very powerful statement to you as a parent is that you are providing them an opportunity to learn how to manage and navigate their freedom when you're parenting the right way in a safe place. So that when they leave your home, they might not respect you in the moment or appreciate you in the moment, but later in life, they will appreciate you and respect you and have actually a greater honor for you because you were willing to do the harder thing. And they will see it as a selfless and a very big act of love that you were able to...
Even courageous.
Yes. To be brave enough to tell them no.
Yeah. Because pretty much every adult comes to the conclusion that when they look back when they were teenagers, to realize that they really weren't that smart. So you can have your children be on your side when they come to that realization, or be against you because of how you handled life during that time period for them.
A lot of pain and brokenness in relationships comes back to as the children become adults and they see the lack of the parenting or the whatever, and they have just so much dishonor or disheartening and that relationship that they have to work through it. This is where then like vows are made, or of I'll never be like this, or I'll never do it this way. And we have these pendulums that swing the other way, and they end up being like what it is that they said they wouldn't. And it's crazy that if, family and parenting was brought back to this right place and right balance, that we would have healthier, more productive people in society.
Yeah, very true. And when kids are not parented, it's a hands-off approach, they end up losing respect for their parents. Mm-hmm. When the parents are controlling, which is the other end of the pendulum swing,
right,
the other side, they tend to end up more in rebellion.
Yeah,
that's kind of tends to be the fruit. So parents need to have a firm hand, but also be guiding and be loving and be teaching and be open to hearing their children, to letting them have input to things. But then also when it comes down to it, just go, yeah, we're not going to do that, or yeah, that's fine, but here's what it needs to look like. Mm-hmm. That's a tough balance to find.
There's tension there, like a perfect tension.
Most people were raised from dysfunctional parents,
yeah,
who did not know how to parent. And we're talking 80% of the people that are listening to this were, of course, 100% were raised with imperfect parents, but probably 80% of people were raised in a pretty high level. And I just made that statistic up on the spot, by the way. But from my perspective, from things I've seen, 80% of people were raised in homes that operate at a pretty high level of dysfunction in terms of the parents knowing how to parent their children.
Right.
So then when they grow older, if they don't break the mold, they don't learn, they don't grow in wisdom, and they don't have right perspective, they in turn end up parenting the same way or develop vows and go, I'm not doing it like that, and they're off in the other ditch. Mm-hmm. And so we need to be able to have this balance to where we learn how to set boundaries and not care about our kids liking us, but then also have, enough freedom and liberty in our relationship with them to let them have some buy-in conversation and not get freaked out about everything.
Right.
Yeah. So praise the Lord. Good stuff. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Family by Design. I pray that you were blessed as you listened to the word of the Lord for your life today. I want to encourage you to go on and leave us a review and a 5-star rating. If this ministry is blessing you, go to our website at www.wartmen.org. There you can find more resources, and you can also consider partnering with this ministry. If you like what we're doing, we just pray that you would at least join us in prayer and consider supporting us financially as we take the gospel deep into the hearts of people. Gospel preached, hearts awakened, and nations reformed.